and give you my interpretation of the story. A man was shipwrecked at sea. Oh, it was bad. Really, really bad. Cold, dark, wet, boat slowly sinking. Has no idea where he is, no idea where he's going, no idea how to get there. Food supply down to almost nothing. He's run through his head every possible recourse he can find. Comes up with nothing. Maybe 2 days till death. So, nowhere else to go, nowhere else to turn. Nothing else came to his mind. He did something he hadn't done in 20 years. He got on his hands and knees and he prayed. He said, God, get me out of this. If you do, you'll have the rest of my life, my faith, my piety, my loyalty. Just some way, somehow, get me out of this mess. Immediately, his boat catches fire. And now it's up in flames. Now, rather than being 2 days from death, he's a couple of minutes from death. Food supply gone. Boat sinking fast. Grabs onto a piece of driftwood, floating out to sea. Now it's a few minutes till death. Now his piety has turned to rage. I mean rage. He raises his fist to the heavens. He looks up and says, I give you my faith. I give you my loyalty. I give you my life. And this is what you do to me, you miserable, sadistic son of a bitch. He then looks up and says, I'll be there in a few minutes. And I will tell you to your face, God, exactly what I think of you. The second, those words leave his lips. The second, a huge passenger boat comes out of the fog. Saddles right next to him. Crew comes down, wraps him up in blankets, brings him on board. First thing the captain says to him, thank God your boat caught fire. Otherwise, we never would have seen you. That's a good story, isn't it? Yeah. Now, my friend the priest, ex-hubcap thief, has a typical Catholic priest interpretation. And I like his interpretation. Everything is in God's time. It's God's plan. You don't know what the hell is going on in your life at any moment in time, because up there, he's doing it for you. And everything is for your good, you stupid bastards. It's all for your good. Not my interpretation. Again, the quasi-atheist interpretation. How many times have I been up here speaking about R.H. Macy, who went bankrupt 4 times? Or Milton Hershey, who went bankrupt 3 times? Or Henry Ford, who went bankrupt twice? Or Ray Kroc, who was penniless at 53 years of age? Or Abraham Lincoln, whose love of his life died when she was just 21 years of age? How many times have I spoken about the miserable failures of the greatest people who ever lived? You see, before they became great, their boat caught fire. I love that metaphor, and I'm going to use it again and again. Let's bring up our first speaker. Dr. Jane Goldberg. She is a clinical psychoanalyst, and she is the founder of group analysis, the actual founder of it. She had a nice practice, and people came to her. When you meet her, you'll realize what a nice, calm, sound, brilliant woman this is. It won't take you long to figure that out. And then, one day, her boat caught fire. Her mother, stricken with cancer, her sister stricken with terminal cancer, her brother murdered. Her boat didn't catch fire, it was nuked. Everyone she loved in her life, she was losing. Her response to this is what I like to refer to as inspirational dissatisfaction. It's when you bang your hand on the desk and say, that's it, I've had it, I am crushed, and I'm going to start climbing the highest mountain you can possibly imagine. And she started climbing. She applied her psychoanalysis to cancer patients and the mind-body connection. She wrote and had published 8 books, some critically acclaimed. My mother, my daughter, myself, The Dark Side of Love. She appeared on many, many talk shows. The Donahue Show, Maury Povich Show, Sally Jesse Raphael, and many, 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 many shows. She began La Casa Spa and Wellness Centers in New York, Puerto Rico, and soon Montclair, New Jersey. When Jane Goldberg's boat caught fire, she changed the world. Folks, that's the definition of greatness. Jane, get up here.
Wow. That person sounds amazing, Steve.
Yeah, really does.
I did have a lot of fires. And I stand here today, I'm 77, and in pretty good shape. I run, I swim. I've been vegetarian for about 60 years, vegan for about 40 years. So I do believe that diet, nutrition has a lot to do with it. So I just want to say that when my mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer, that was a completely unacceptable situation to me because my mother and I were very close. And this is the book that I wrote about the experience of separation between mothers and daughters. And I begin with the story of my mother's death, and then I end with the story of my daughter's birth. So this was when my mother was diagnosed 60 years ago. No internet, no information about how to treat terminal cancer other than medicine, and thank the Lord, the medicine people said they had nothing to give to my mother. So in my desperation, I just started calling all over the world to see who knew what about how to cure cancer holistically through natural means. And I did find somebody who guided us, and my mother went from being in a wheelchair to playing tennis again. She completely reversed her terminal cancer. So that's what got me interested in cancer and why I became a specialist in working with cancer patients. The other book that I just want to show is The Hormesis Effect. This is not the last book that I wrote, but one of the last books. So the story of this book is that my little dog Lily, my 6-pound poodle, was dying. We were a week into her not eating anything, not drinking anything. 4 vets telling me, $4,000 into vets telling me she's dying, we don't know why, we don't know what to do. And one of my patients came in, my psychoanalytic patients, she had just gotten a dog and she saw Lily lying on my lap and, oh, what's the matter with Lily? So I said, she's dying and we don't know why. And she said, oh, you have to bring her to Donna on the Upper West Side. So I called Donna on the Upper West Side, went up to Donna on the Upper West Side that night at 10 o'clock. And Lily was in my lap, and I was keeping her alive by bringing her to the vet and getting her subcutaneously rehydrated. And as a vegetarian, meat really kind of disgusts me, truthfully. I was going to Whole Foods, and I was buying hamburger meat, and I was squeezing the blood out and trying to feed her the blood through, one of those things, the dropper. Which she was having none of. So she was completely dehydrated except for the vet every day. So she's sitting on my lap, and Donna says, well, let's put her on this machine. So there are these tubes that Donna's lying on my lap on top of Lily. And after about 10 minutes, I put her on the ground. The treatment has ended. And she walks. She hadn't had enough energy to walk in a week. And she walks around the apartment. Where am I? Let me see what's going on here. So that was pretty miraculous to me. Donna said the machine is PEMF, pulsed electromagnetic field. She got it for human treatment, but she herself had 2 dogs that were 21 and 22 years old. And every time she would turn the machine on for a human treatment, the dogs would throw themselves against the machine, so she decided the dogs wanted the treatment. So the next day, I went out and bought my first PMF machine for La Casa de Spa at $25,000, and I've been using PMF as one of my treatments ever since. Then, to get to why this book was created, so then Donna put some water down, and there's a little stone in the water, and she said, does she want some hormesis water? I said, I don't know. What is that? What's the stone? She said, oh, it's radioactive. So as a holistic person, I'm like very phobic about radiation, so I run to the other side of the room to get away from the little rock. And that began a whole educational experience for me of learning about low-level radiation hormesis. Hormesis is a phenomenon where what happens at one dose is different than what happens at a high dose. Cancer treatment, when it's radioactive, radiation is very high. It destroys tissue. Low-level radiation is not destructive. It actually does a slight injury to the tissue, to the biological system, and as a result of that, the biological system mounts a response, and it goes into repair mechanism, builds the immune system, detoxes, does everything good, and you get better from it. So when she explained that to me, I began this journey that led to writing a whole book about it. So to go off track, this is not even what I was planning to talk about, but to go off track just for a minute, the people that know the most about low-level radiation and radiation toxicity are the Japanese, and they knew that before Fukushima. They had spas that were painted with radon paint, radioactive paint. People would go to the spas for health. So again, what happens at high level, which destroys the tissue, at low level, when you do radiation hormesis, when you expose yourself to a very low level of radiation, which you can do through stones, you can do it through hot water springs. All of the hot water springs all over the world are radioactive. This builds longevity, it builds fertility, it builds health in every sort of way. And I just got totally fascinated by that phenomenon, which I'd never heard of before, and decided to write a book on it. So I'm moving right along. I don't know how long I actually have, Steve. So tell me when you're getting either bored or restless or need to move on. So I just like these quotes because psychoanalysis is basically storytelling. So I like the Maya Angelou quote. Storytelling is what it is that we do with our lives. But in psychoanalysis, the analyst helps the patient to discover what that patient's life story is. And you can go through a lot of different versions, and finally you settle on the one that feels the most authentic to you, the most comfortable to you, and that becomes the story that you then live with as your history. I like Sigmund Freud's quote because obviously when we use words as opposed to real weapons, the UN was created with that in mind, that let's sit down and talk and dialogue and see if we can iron out our differences. Didn't work so well, but the theory is right. And I want to talk about Margaret Mead in terms of a personal story. So I love the fact that she said the beginning of civilization is a healed femur. So I do consider myself to be very athletic, and so I got interested in pickleball. Everybody is into pickleball these days. So about 7-8 months ago, I did my first pickleball game, jumped up to get the ball, fell flat on my hip, and had a hip replacement, full hip replacement. This is all titanium now. So the reason why she says that is the first sign of civilization, I will tell you from firsthand experience, I was down for the count. I couldn't move. Had it not been for people that came in and brought food for me, people that emptied my commode, took care of me for the first 3 months when I literally was lying on the couch, I would have died. And the doctor, the surgeon that took care of me said, 100 years ago, you would be dead with this injury. He also said, after he saw that I was healing as well as I was, he also said, 50% of the people your age that had this injury will be dead within a year. Thank you very much for the good news, but the reason why he felt comfortable saying that to me is because he saw I was healing so well, because I came into the injury very healthy. And so here there's a little tightness I feel. I'm pretty good. I'm running again. So what I want to say, yes, thank you very much, Steve, for saying I'm not the founder, but I'm one of the founders of group analysis. I love group analysis. I don't take new patients, actually. All of my patients are in my groups. So I think group is where it's at in terms of intelligence. I'm going to talk a lot about intelligence today. Hopefully you can read it while I'm talking, because I don't want to read everything that would be kind of redundant. These are my books. This is La Casa, Puerto Rico. I'm not going to go into this very long, but why Puerto Rico? It is crucial to the planet, to the integrity and health of the planet. Puerto Rico is really important. I know we think of it as a third world country. We think of it as Trump would say about various countries, it's a shitstorm. I think he said something like that. But the fact is, without Puerto Rico, the universe, the globe, planet Earth is in much worse shape for all of those reasons. More reasons. I'll just read the first one, that it's the deepest trench in the Atlantic Ocean, the Puerto Rico Trench, which is off on the other side of Puerto Rico from where I am. And that really helps us we can get new medicines by understanding what the growth is in these very deep ocean places. And the monkeys, after the last big hurricane, the monkeys, they're safe. The monkeys are still there. They're still alive. They knew what to do to protect themselves. So these are the two books that I'm writing now, 9 and 10, The Revolutionary Brain and The Evolutionary Mind. So as a psychoanalyst, obviously I'm interested in the psyche, but the psyche is part of the brain. So I just recently in the last 10 years, got interested in the brain per se. And so those books are in the oven, so to speak. They're 98% finished, and it's been completely fulfilling and revelatory for me to be working on those books. So this is one of the programs that I'm going to be promoting and going to be offering. So I have 3 size programs: brainer size, yoga size, and kids size. And this is the final one, speed dial size, where you can just call up and we can give you some brain exercises. Brainer size is specifically to build intelligence. So this conceptualization is pretty standard. The ice cream cone, I think, is really great. So the first layer is the vanilla flavor, that's what I call it, which is the bottom one. And that's fight, flight, that's survival. All of the primitive animals have that. Then we go to the next layer, which is the mammalian brain. And those are the animals that actually can care for their offspring and have some understanding of love, some conceptualization of love, not the love that we humans have, but still in taking care of their offspring, there's something that they now feel that the older, more primitive animals didn't. And then the top layer, which is us, came 9,000 years ago, and this is the neocortex, and this is from which we think. So we survive, we feel, we think. And with the neocortex, that's our unique brain, we can do these various wonderful things. Remember the past, anticipate the future, and be present in the present. Animals don't do that. They don't think about the future. They only are in the present. They can't think about their death. What a blessing to be an animal and to not know that you're going to die. So my point about brainer size and it's a series of exercises that I have formulated, been working on it for about 10 years, is that it's the same foundation that why it is that I love group analysis. I just think that togetherness is where it's at. If we're not together as a human species, we're back to the primitive animals. So it's not high tech, it's not low tech, it's together tech is my kind of saying. So the conceptualization of the exercises that I've created is Mr. Licks. So you see MR is Mr. Blix, sorry, Blix. I added the breathicize about 2 years ago. So the exercises are all organized according to those categories. So breathicize is breathing exercises, cognicize is cognition exercises, and so on. What makes brainicize different from all the other brain programs is that they're all digital. So 2 senses are stimulated, visual and auditory. You know, we're 5 senses, maybe we're more, but you're not doing a whole body, brain, mind, psyche integration unless all of your senses are being stimulated. So the brainicize program stimulates smell, stimulates taste, stimulates tactile. It's much more comprehensive. And my idea, so La Casa, New York is now closed, probably permanently. I think I'm going to be looking for, I have been looking for a space in Montclair, and when I find one, I'll probably open La Casa, New Jersey. But my idea for La Casa, Puerto Rico is to do brain-a-thon intensive workshops there. So that's a picture of my property. I've got 9 acres, and it's in El Yunque, which is the rainforest in Puerto Rico. It's gorgeous, it's nature, it's natural. We have 17 cats, we have 2 dogs, we have lizards galore, we have chickens like crazy, we have turkeys, we have peacocks, we have so many animals that are living there that it's an animal lover delight. Of course, this is what I said a minute ago, that when you're only stimulating auditory and visual, then you're losing a lot. So when my daughter was about 11 years old, she was sitting on the couch and she was going like that. And I said, "Ma, what are you doing?" She said, "Oh, I'm on a brain program." She was on Lumosity, which is a very leading brain enhancement program. And so I made a joke because, again, this was a long time ago, and this was burgeoning my brainicize program. I said, "Oh, you're giving business to the competition." But I knew in 2 days, 2 weeks, I knew she would be off of it. I knew she would be bored, and indeed she was. I don't even think it took her 2 days. I think it probably took her 2 hours, because this is what we do all the time, and it's not interesting because it's not whole body, whole brain stimulating. The body and the brain talk to each other. As a psychoanalyst, I'm interested in dreams. It's one of the ways that the body and the brain talk to each other, kind of unbeknownst to our egos. So dreams are really important in terms of understanding. Some of my cancer patients actually had dreams that forecast or diagnosed that they had cancer. So it's nice to be interested in your dreams. So we know a lot more about the brain than we used to. Every year, our information about the brain changes. So it's very important to kind of keep in touch with the current research about it. So the smartest brain is a brain that learns, unlearns, and relearns. And they now know that it's not about the number of brain cells that you're born with. It's only about the neural connections. It's how many connections you have. And I think that's a great metaphor, because the fulfillment of our social life is about our connections. Connections is everything, whether it's internal, whether it's external. Connections is where we live most and most fulfillingly. So think of it as CrossFit for the brain, gym for the mind, or a playground for the psyche. So the point is that if you're not having fun, you're not going to repeat it, and you're not going to learn from it. Learning has to be fun. Again, not low tech, not high tech, together tech. It's a team sport. Getting smart is a team sport. So the reason why I have this picture of a casino is because I was at a conference in Nevada once. I was speaking at a cancer conference. And so the conference room was over this way, and in order to get to it, you had to go from the hotel room through the casino. I guess the hotel did that on purpose because they wanted everybody to stop and spend money. I got lost. My brain was so disorganized from the disorganization and the stimuli that were coming in at me on every angle from the casino. I couldn't actually find my way to the conference room. And that's the way the brain is when we're born. It's inherently disorganized. And the job of the teacher, the job of the parents, is to help that brain to get organized so that it becomes very precise, very specific, and it can learn in specific, precise ways. And unlearn. If we don't forget things, then there's not obviously the brain is endless in its size, its capacity, but nevertheless, we're not endless in our capacity to remember, so we have to forget. And if you want to know what it's like to not forget, ask Mary Lou Henner. Y'all remember who she is, Taxi? She was the actress in Taxi. So she has a condition where she doesn't forget anything. So if you say, where were you on February 22nd, 1983, she will tell you, and she will tell you the news that day. There are only a few people in the universe that have this affliction, but it's called something autobiographical superiority, I think is the name of it. It's a painful condition to live with. We need a waste disposal system for our memories, and we have that. We now know, we didn't know this 10 years ago, we now know that, again, back to our dreams and our nightlife, we have a waste disposal system for our memories that happens at night when we're sleeping. Okay, so I want to talk a little about what is wrong with our educational system. So those of you who are in the right age category will remember the book, Why Johnny Can't Read. I'm saying why Johnny still can't read, because here we are, from 1955, however many years it is since then. First thing is that the kid goes to school and they tell him to sit down. Okay, you're going to see in a minute. The problem with sitting is that sitting puts us immediately into fight-flight position. That you don't want the kid to be in fight-flight. Johnny's bored. Why is Johnny bored? You'll again see in a minute. The visual ability for a child to see is about 1/100th of a second. In 1/100th of a second, he's seen everything that there is to see, and he's bored if he's not seeing a new stimulus. So this room is like you're looking at a still painting to him. Children don't look at still paintings. They look at videos on TV because there's movement, and it exercises and stimulates their brain. And the teacher says, stare at me. You're going to see a problem. Look at me. Make eye contact. You're going to see what the problem with that is. So yes, sitting puts you immediately into fight-flight position. It also makes you fat because you're sitting. You're not moving. So I just said this. Their ability to hold attention is 1/100th of a second. And the reason why when the teacher says stare at me, she's actually blinding them when she makes them make eye contact, because there's a part of the eye that's in the back of the macula that's a blind spot. And so when you stare at somebody long enough or something long enough, that spot is activated, and you don't notice it, but actually that part of the eye makes you blind in that part of the eye for that second. So it's not a good thing to force children to make eye contact. Okay, now we're doing this. I do this. I've converted from this to this. I'm losing all of those 14 brain processes by doing this instead of this. This is my favorite. Sometimes I get down on the floor and actually demonstrate this. Do you see that his head is below where his heart is, up there? So we sleep with pillows. Animals don't sleep with pillows. They sleep with their head below their heart so that the blood flows into their head while they're sleeping. So they're rejuvenating themselves while they're sleeping. Throw away your pillow. You could even put the foot of your bed up a few inches so that your brain is getting the blood flow. Okay, this paper, the magic number 7 plus or minus 2 was written by this guy Miller. It was the most quoted paper in psychological research ever. So what George Miller discovered is that you have basically the ability, you, all of you, and most of us alive, have the ability to hold 7 items in your short-term memory at a time. And the way he tested it was by giving people numbers. And the beauty of numbers is that it's so boring. So it's not like it evokes a memory, you know, or a feeling the way a name might. So if I say, I'll start, usually when I'm testing somebody to do an assessment, I'll start with 4 numbers. I'll just say 4, 1 second for each number, 4 numbers, and ask you to repeat them back to me. Most people can do 4, most people can do 5. The average is 7. My experience now is that a lot of people can't even do 7, even that should be the human average across the world. So when Johnny comes in from playing, and Johnny is 5 years old, and his mother says, Johnny, take your boots off, put them in the closet, hang your coat up, come sit at the table, eat your cereal, and make sure that you chew with your mouth closed. That's 6 items that Johnny has to remember. Johnny, at 5 years old, can only remember 5. A 1-year-old, you say one number, a 1-year-old will repeat it back to you, 1 number. A 2-year-old will repeat back 2. 5-year-old can hold 5 separate items in his memory. He can't hold 6 unless he's ahead of his time, ahead of his age. So Johnny doesn't do all 6 of these, and the mother gets frustrated. Johnny, I told you. She's not recognizing this is a neurological fact. Johnny can't follow 6 commands if Johnny is 5. And without parents understanding that, there are all these conflicts between their children because they think the children are not cooperating. I love this because, you know, as a writer of 9 books and 2 more coming, or 8 books and 2 more coming, people think I'm brilliant. I'm often told that I'm brilliant. I know I'm not brilliant. I know I'm on the high end of smart, but I'm not brilliant. But I am really curious. And so when people talk to me, obviously my patients talk to me, my friends talk to me. One of the books that I have in mind to write is If I'm a Sun and You're a Moon. I'm a very good moon. I take in energy. I listen, and in listening, I reflect back, and people feel really understood when I reflect back to them what it is that they've told me about themselves and about their lives. A sun, of course, generates its own energy. I can do that. I'm doing that right now. But my moonness is really strong in me. And I think you can't really be a moon without being infinitely curious. So that's why I really like this quote about Einstein. And I believe him, that he had no special talents. He was just infinitely curious. I say, I come in peace, don't kill me because I want to cure you, because the word cure, because of my work with cancer, of course, you can't say that you're curing cancer or you'll be put in jail. Or about 150 now of the holistic practitioners around the country have died under mysterious circumstances. So I don't cure cancer. I'm curious about cancer. And I'm very into language and words and etymology. And so I love the etymology of cura, which is care, sorrow, concern, and that those are inherent elements in curiosity. And I want to finish by talking about Chris Reeves. So everybody remembers he was hurt in a horse accident, and he was completely paralyzed from here down. And they said that he would never get any functioning back. He would never have any sensation in the rest of his body. And I remember Dana was on a TV show, his wife, and the person that was interviewing has said, "What do you hope for?" And she said, "Chris will walk." And she said, "He will walk." So the interviewer said, "Do you mean you hope that he will walk?" And she said, "No, Chris will walk." Chris didn't walk. But the technology that they created because of studying his injury and studying how to stimulate his neurological system again, there are people now today that are walking. I mean, they have electrodes and they're not walking normally the way I am, even with my titanium hip. But they have accomplished something through Chris Reeves giving money to the cause and using himself as a subject on which they were doing all kinds of experiments, trying to stimulate the nervous system. And in fact, when he died, he had gained, as it says, 70% of his ability to feel throughout his body. He died because he became the father that he thought he should be, could be, wanted to be, even in this state. And he had been feeling a little sick. He went to a game that his son gave. It was like a soccer game that he was involved in, and he got sick from the cold, and that killed him. And Dana, who had been perfectly healthy, if you ever want to think about the effect of fires on our psychological system, which then affects our biological system, Dana was dead a year later of cancer. So I want to say why impossible is now essential, because if you break down the word impossible, it's I am possible. That's what's possible. Everything is possible, because when you own possibility, I am possible. Everything is possible. Thank you. Any questions? Well, I have 2 books that I can donate. I brought them, and I don't need to bring them home, so if anybody wants either of those books, help yourselves.
Yeah, that was phenomenal.
Thank you.
I have a question. What's the offer? You're making an offering for investors, right? Are you
I'm not.
an investor?
No.
I'm not,
No.
but if you want to talk to me, I'm happy to talk about
Well, I have an idea.
it. Okay, let me hear your idea.
Well, maybe come up and do a workshop, since you don't have your place anymore.
Sounds good?
Yeah.